and welcome to another episode of the Turn Up For What podcast, talking your Houston Texans straight from the Great British Isles. We're sitting here 5-1 for a cup of tea. Gareth can't join us because he's been stuck in London after the Bears Keenan Allen tea drinking celebration. It wasn't quite a coffee morning or a tea party, Paul, was it? But sitting 5-1 right now, I can get used to it.
Yeah, I keep saying it every time I come on. From where we were 3 years ago to now, being 5-1 is just incredible. And I think it's still a coach's dream, really. 5-1, and there's still things for sure that you can polish up, make better, make more consistent, make improvements on. Yeah, it's a really nice place to be and a really good time to be a Texans fan.
Yeah, no, I think it was good. And look, I think I watched the game back today, and it was a little bit. I suppose I was a little bit on edge, and I think the years of torment do that to you. We've been quite close in the games leading up to this. Not winning, not covering the point spread, and not winning is how you should do, and that's a luxury problem. We get that, absolutely, that is a luxury problem. However, this was a game that I thought, if any, you were going to have to win by some, because you had an overmatched defensive versus offensive line in the Houston Texans' favor. That was going to have to be a key point of the game, and it was to a degree. But it's the killer instinct, and we'll go into some of the reasons why, that I feel that you have to be able to show, regardless of who you're playing against. If somebody opens the door for you, you put your foot right through it and you take the chances that you're given, and that's how you win games late in the season. Because good teams would have got a lot closer, I think, than they did. Because really, Paul, before we come back to that, actually, I just want a quick point of winning in Foxborough. It's a place I went. The fucking arrogance of the place. They are overprivileged, spoiled, don't know what bad times look like if you put on an old VT for them. And I think, look, ultimately they came up through the years, and they had the Brady years. They were the most, and will never be replicated, that dynasty. But they've had it so good for so long. 7 defeats for the Texans over their history. 2 seasons ended there in the playoffs, 2012 and 2016. That would have been Brock Osweiler, even though that defense was unreal that night. The Texans team, I always remember when, I think it was Joe Dreesen or the other tight end, dropped a touchdown right at the start. They had to kick a field goal after Daniel Manning took it all the way up the field from the opening kickoff. And you thought, remember watching that night, thinking, yeah, they've got a right chance here. But they just had quality that other teams didn't, and were well coached and had a sort of cerebral play caller that just led them to so many chances of championships and so many championships. It'll probably never, ever be replicated. But they've got fuck all of that now. And it's absolutely brilliant to go up there and win, because I think they're just not used to it. And I think, when we have these good times, but I like to think we've paid our dues a little bit, that we can, hopefully there's more to come. And that's probably part of the reason why I'm sort of being a bit pernickety and a bit kind of overcritical on the how you win, because you've got to take care of the riffraff easily to logically have a good chance of taking your chances against the big boys. But I think it felt quite good.
Yeah, I mean,
particularly there.
Yeah, I think you've got to be, to some extent, if you want to go far in the league and into the playoffs and into January, you've got to be a bit of a flat track bully in these type of games. You've got to just put the crap teams to the slaughter, just get them done, get them out of the way, and then to an extent do what we did last night, putting in some backups in the fourth quarter. With 5 to 7 minutes to go, it looked like a completely different Texans team out there. There wasn't many starters on the pitch, and I think you have to do that, And long may it continue, because there'll be some tougher games to come up for sure. But it's always good to beat them.
Yeah, and I suppose watching them stream out after that Joe Mixon touchdown was quite a sweet moment. You seen them all heading for the exits. You almost hear all the seats slapping up in unison. Get a head start on the traffic, and and thank you for coming. And I think that was a good moment. Now segues us nicely into Joe Mixon. You messaged me that yesterday. Having him back just makes a hell of a difference, to the point where he's maybe our second most important player after CJ Stroud. I don't know. I don't think it's even probably close when you see the difference in that offense. But Joe Mixon yesterday, 2 touchdowns, 30 odds through the year, 100 on the ground. Burst the biggest run of his career, I believe, and there's that 67 yarder. Oh, sorry, 67 yarder. He just makes a world of difference to this offense, and good players have got the habit of making sort of average players look better and serviceable. And I think he certainly did that. And our chances, I think, Paul, are very aligned, to the health of Joe and the ability to keep him upright.
Yeah, was it 13 carries for 102 or something like that? Yes, there was the one really big play in there, but even what would have been 12 for 40 odd yards is not a bad economy for a guy coming back off a high ankle sprain. But yeah, we've got to keep him fit. It was I think I tweeted maybe halfway through. It was definitely in the second half, asking where he was, and they were limiting his snap count, and then about 2 or 3 plays later, he come in and caught a touchdown. So we looked a completely different team with him in. He's got a really nice ability to bounce outside. Doesn't seem to run into or catch legs, tangle legs with his own linemen, and can be outside pretty quickly and gone. And I think the offense just looked like it made more sense with him in there. I don't know if that's like a good way of describing how it feels, but it seems like we've just got to keep him fit and keep him upright.
Yeah,
I thought 25 carries or snaps from him.
Yeah, that's it. You don't want to overwork him, and I suppose we should really give Dameon Pierce just a shout out as well. I think because there was one play, and look, Damien's going to be that foil for him, and I think yesterday was the first time I could almost kind of see a role within this offense getting carved out. Obviously, last season, the hellish season for him, gets injured week 1. He looks okay week 1. Is that kind of heavy back to come in, to give some physicality and kind of loosen up the lanes a little bit, for Mixon. But there was a down, and I think it was a 2nd and 17 in the third quarter. That's it. It was after the second sack on Stroud, and that's the first time I remember thinking he let the line flow all to the near side because it was on the left hash. And he just planted his foot and cut up right up the field. And I don't think he quite got the first down. I think they converted a third after that. That was a drive that led to the field goal, make it 24-17. But I just thought, oh, wait now. And don't get me wrong, there's certain plays and there's certain packages that he's probably going to need to be brought along slowly. I wouldn't want to be relying on him. And I think, as we've said, Mixon is so important to this offense that without him, your chances look very, very different. And I think we all recognise that. But I thought that was a great moment, and that was probably a bigger moment than the touchdown, because the touchdown, you know what he can do when he gets open space. His long speed's pretty good. Quite another day that might have got called out of bounds, but it killed. I mean, the game was already over with the previous Mixon touchdown after they'd settled for a couple of field goals in the second half, and that kind of that was all she wrote at that point. And then, as you said, they got the backups in, but a big boost for Damien when our ground game's been our biggest weakness. To have 2 guys come in and contribute like that on the road, Paul, I think is probably the biggest positive you could take from Sunday.
Yeah, and I think the ability to run it as well as we did yesterday then couples into something that you hear the Texans management talking a lot about dominating time of possession. You carry the ball well. You can soon need to eat up the clock, and you end up on the right side of that particular statistic. And it was really good. There were some plays where it felt a little bit like Pierce was running up some pretty tight alleys and was running into the back or getting stopped at the line. But you can see what he can do. That one play where he made, like you say, 12, 13 yards on a long second down, and then the one where he broke free. Yeah, we've seen him do that, and we've seen him carry defenders as he does it in the past. So a confident Damien Pearce is a really valuable thing for us to have. And like you said, I think last year there was very little confidence in him. So
absolutely. And I think he's got some role. I mean, he showed that in the Cleveland game last year. He's got some role on special teams as well, because ultimately that's just power blocking, albeit it's a very different looking play now with the kickoff. But the punt return still remains the same. But it was a kickoff return against Cleveland. So, I'd hope he could come in and add there. And Luke Sims did well yesterday after, we were maybe talking a couple of weeks ago, he could have been cut. But I thought Sims came back in with Robert Woods going out, and, that all held well. Special teams all held well. I think, check. Tommy Townsend, I don't know if it was a fresh air, but he punted like the punter they thought they were going to get when they signed him, and it looked better. He actually saw a punt returner backing up because he don't out over kicked where he expected it to. So, that less said about punters and special teams probably the better, apart from obviously Kaimi misses one, but we'll forgive him and we'll move on. I don't think it's a big bullet point on the game. I think what was really important, Paul, and it was Mixon that kind of signified it at the start, was just those first two drives. Okay, there was a couple of flags in there that kept us churning a little bit, and maybe on another day you don't get all of them. Particularly the one on Tank for the first one, I didn't really think that was much in that. But the refs did give a couple the other way, kind of soft ones, so maybe it evens itself out over the game. But those two first drives, and I think maybe that's what kind of built up a little bit of frustration, because you thought, go and just tack on another, get 3-4 scores up, and then you just have to run the ball at that point. You just kill the clock every time you get it. But those two drives, that's the best I think we've looked back-to-back drives. The word imperious was what I wrote in my notes, Paul. I think you just looked like a real serious team at that point, going to, albeit against a weaker opposition, but they were asserting themselves in the game early.
Yeah, I think I haven't looked at the stats on them first two drives, but I guess it's probably over 50, well, coming up on 50% of CJ's total yards through the air on them couple of drives, or in that first quarter for sure. The second quarter, yeah, little bit disappointing, but there was some nerves jangling around there, thinking we were going to make it.
So D'Amico called it a lull in his post-match comments, yeah, and said, "Look, you had to remind the guys about that." What do you put that lull down to? Because I think it comes back again to the adjustments of those first. And I saw Nate Tice from The Athletic tweeted this out. Houston are about the fourth best offense in the league on their first 16 plays on average, but then they drop down to late teens, early 20s thereafter when teams adjust against them. What do you put that down to? Now, it's great you've got that, but the counter punches is where I think this team will need to find some efficacy at some point if you're going to kick it with the big boys, as we keep looking towards. What do you think that's down to, Paul? Because it seems to be happening every week.
Yeah, it just made a change that it was the second quarter as opposed to the third quarter this week, I guess. I don't know what I put it down to, really. Defensive coordinators are obviously clever people, and they're making some pretty smart adjustments. Whether we can now, we've got a bit of a running game if we keep Mixon fit, bring a bit more play action into it, get Stroud on the move, run into his right where we know he's particularly strong. Maybe make some plays. Just stretching the game a bit more at that point. I think we're very, very good at them medium distance passes. Now we've got Tank catching some balls again. Maybe we can stretch the field a bit more and really take the top off things and put it to some teams, give them some stuff they're not expecting. But I think the adjustments that defences are making against us are pretty sound at the moment, and we have to react quicker to that, I guess.
Yeah, I two sort of points in my notes. I think one was the sort of delayed, or they described it as blitz from depth, so they kind of wait for a blocker to be assigned up front, and then a DB or a linebacker looks like they're about to be in coverage, and then blitzes late, and I think that's challenging those internal three. We keep giving up internal pressures far more readily than we do pressures on the edge. So the A and the B gaps tend to be the way that teams will get to CJ, and I think that's something we need to find a way to try and minimize, because you saw him take a jar to the arm as a jarring hit to the arm rather when he threw it in the second half, and I think that's not something we really want to continue with. because at one point, that can get dangerous and he might miss time. So hopefully they will do that. But they keep finding that was a sort of slightly different way versus the twists and stunts and the loops that they've been given in the internal. That was clear. And ultimately, the most frustrating bit about that is 9 times out of 10 on Sunday, we had more blockers than we needed. So we've got an extra man in protection. They've got an extra man in the secondary, and then they were just kind of playing zone and just choking off the a little bit, kind of like what the Bears did a little bit, kind of choking off a lot of the crossers, and it's a lot of mesh concepts in this scheme, and a lot of kind of developing plays that need a little bit of time and to break through or run through those zones. So that was a fair bit of it, I think, as well. And then I think when you did get the one-on-one matches, when they did go man coverage, that was where you saw the success. And I think it looked like, certainly, I'm not seeing the 22. So it's another hour and a half of my life that I've got these days. But I think and sort of certain packages get it earlier than me. I don't know when it comes out now. I've not watched it once this year. But from the broadcast, it looked like that was the transition they made, and we'll pick that up later in the week or something like that and find out. Test that is now, as you said, there was about 100 yards, a 14, a 10 play drive. Those first two chewed a lot of clock and got you a nice healthy lead. But I think New England probably would have went in at half time delighted that they were only 7 down when it could have easily been 28-0 at that point.
Yeah, no, it could have been, and I think, like I said at the start, I think we probably need to get into the habit of putting these teams to the slaughter a little bit and being flat track bullies. You can see how you can see how the Ravens go there, and the current Ravens as they are in week 6. That you can see how that Ravens team goes there and puts up quite a few points on them. And I think we just need to get to that stage. I think with the extending plays and letting things develop a bit more, I think like I said, the play action stuff and getting CJ on the move and a little bit outside, especially with that pressure coming through the middle, getting him away from that area, away from the pocket, will probably help them a little bit. But we need to bring a bit more of that, I guess. But we did a lot of it last year, so it's surprising that we're not, as reliant. Well, we didn't have a run game last year. So.
Yeah. And I suppose that the balance that the run game or a more successful run game, I think, we're probably miles away from kind of where you'd want to be as a kind of championship sort of style run game that would give you, what you would want to do. I think what were we, sort of 6.9 yards rush average yesterday. So, that was pretty good. But obviously, if you take those 2 big plays out of it, that'll shrink that right down to probably they're not so good. So you kind of padded it a bit with that. But the key thing that I saw Albert Breer wrote about this in his column. I just saw the headline. I'm not ready yet, but the biggest change between the first and the second half, or that lull in the second quarter, right out of the chute in the second half, where if New England go down and tie it up, it's going to be a tight game or a much tighter game. You thought, and that could have easily happened, and you think, here we go again. But the Texans. Will Anderson strip sack, or was that Will Anderson? Or Will Anderson was the first one, wasn't it? Say that again.
Was it the Aziz knocking it out?
Oh, just the first one. Yeah, so the first fumble was the sack in the second half. Yeah, sorry, that was Donnell Hunter. Apologies, I'll edit that bit out. But Donnell Hunter in the second half came in and got you a big play straight away, and then within 40 seconds of the clock, you've then gone and put a 7 up. So your defense got you a turnover. You went and scored a 7 straight away, and that's the kind of momentum-grabbing moments that you need to have as a good football team. And I think that happened a number of times in the second half, where the both units or all 3 units complemented one another and turned that into an advantage. It was just 3 there. It was just 7 there. There was a couple of 3s later on, and then 2 sort of big run 7s later on into the third and fourth quarter. But that is the kind of football you need to play. Take advantage of those opportunities, and they did that, and that's what wins you games. And I think that was the big difference between the 2 teams ultimately.
Yeah, I think it was the best half time we've had this year. I think we come out at the start of the second half with a point to prove. It felt like, and everybody looked like they were on it. You know, they were flying around. There was loads of energy in there, rather than a bit of a slow start like we've had in the past. I think after, New England finished the first half with the ball, didn't they? And then, had the chance to come out and make it really pay for us by having the ball again. And I think the defence had a point to prove. Really, it was since the Chicago game, where we know Chicago don't really have an O-line. I think it's probably the best I've seen the defence play as a line this year. So it was good to see.
Yeah, we'll come back to the defense because there's a good philosophical point I want to pick up with you that D'Amico talked about during the week there with Texans media. But in terms of obviously the big news that we've not mentioned so far coming into this week, staying on the offensive side of the ball, was Nico Collins going to IR. He's going to miss 4 games. He missed obviously the weekend there, Green Bay on the road, Indy at home, and then jetting in a short week to the Jets on Thursday night before he can come back. And that's Detroit on the Sunday night football. So that may be his first game back, depending on how the hamstring heals. He may be ready to go. He may not. We don't know. It was a bad one to lose him. He was playing at probably the best receiver output in the league. So in some ways, this was a big test how Coach Slow calls the offense and reshapes it, and also how these other guys can step up. Now, I don't know if Xavier Hutchinson got hurt late on. He certainly seemed to kind of sort of look like he was in pain on the ground at one point when he I think it was Tank Dell, kind of came on him. He was sent to me with the lead blocker for it late on, sort of in the third quarter, I believe. I don't know if he came back out at that point. We'll touch on a couple of injuries that came, but as you said, I suppose it was probably a sort of B-, I think, for the pass catchers for me in that sense. I think they showed good route running ability. I mean, Diggs' route against Gonzalez, who's meant to be their best corner, who's meant to be an up-and-coming talent at that position, but just on that turnover at the second half, just showed a route running masterclass for him that the young guy wasn't up to the task. So it's there in patches, but I think we lacked a deep threat. The running game was the surprise that gave us the explosive plays rather than the biggest long play of the day, which was I think it was 20-odd yards to Tank. I think that was on the first drive of the game. So we're going to need more from these receivers. It was good early, but I think consistent production over 4 quarters is something for the next 3 weeks. We're going to have to see more of them. Now, they might not need it as much if the run game's good, but I'm still a little bit unconvinced about these guys stepping up in the field. Now, it's impossible to replace Nico. We all get that, but you need to find new things or different things you're good at in his absence to be functional. So I don't think we've quite seen enough, and perhaps because we didn't have to. It wasn't a huge passing attempt day from CJ after the early goings, but yeah, it kind of nagged at me a little bit.
Yeah, I thought it was. I've been saying, I think the last few times I've been on, that we need to start seeing more from Tank and getting him involved, and it was good that he was the first person that they were really turning to with Nico being out.
And he's hard to cover, really hard to cover. They struggled, and I think particularly on these quick in breaking or routes, I just would like to just see him, just if he gets pressed at the line, just let him go. Just let him run a couple of go routes. Because I always remember that touchdown against Arizona last year where he said to CJ in the huddle when he's like, I'm just going to go. I'm going to run a 9. See if you can find me. And he did, and I think he's some of his hand eye coordination, catch him to the ground a couple of times. It was probably a low throw from CJ. It was his best performance of the year. But I suppose we've got to keep asking for more if we're trying to climb the ultimate here. But it's probably been a little bit harsh and it's probably circumstantial. But yeah, there just needs to be that and some from those two, and we need either Hutch or Mechie within the wide receivers to kind of do something.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote down in my notes that I think Tank had three of them really low catches where CJ's led him to the ground and he's been able to take it low and protect himself on the ball as well, including the touchdown, which was really good to see, because I think being a smaller framed guy, throwing them ones up in the air for him to catch and compete for, which he does, and he does well, you always run the risk of him getting hit pretty big. The Diggs one I think you mentioned is where he he runs that hard line and then stops and comes right back on himself, isn't it? And leaves the corner for dust and makes another good catch. I think the one that I think I saw the stats earlier. I think Hutchinson only had there was only 2 targets on Hutchinson. The one that we probably could do with some more on in the pass catching game is Dalton Schultz. It was 4 for 8 yesterday, and there was a couple of drops in there where you somebody of his level should be catching them. There's the one where he goes to it one-handed that he drops, and you're like, you could probably get 2 hands to that and make it a comfortable catch, and then I'm pretty sure there was one in the end zone as well that you think.
Well, there was 2 that really fucking pissed me off, to be honest. Actually, Paul, right? There was the obvious one where it was the interception, where you probably kill the game at that point if he just goes up, but his feet leaves the ground, but he doesn't get any taller. Like he's a big-bodied guy. If you just you saw him do it the week before, where he just raised up into the air and above DB's height because of his length. He didn't use that. He looked like he was on his heels, and I saw in the offshot of the cameras after the 2 of them conferring about what should have happened or what they thought was going to happen. But the one that actually really pissed me off, and I've seen this a few times from him, is just half-arse coming out of breaks in the routes. And actually, you saw it on the Tank Dell touchdown, the first one, and he actually almost turns as if he knows where the ball's going rather than continue his route because he had 2 DBs on him. And I just thought, I've seen that too many times this year. I don't know if he's hurt, because it's kind of dropped off dramatically. I don't know if there's maybe something that's nagging him, and not everything goes in the injury report. It's only for fantasy football, so don't believe it all. It's all window dressing, really. But I'm intrigued during the week. But there's something that's just not quite happening.
Yeah, there was you kind of half dropped out then a second, but there was the one where they got the flag it might have been just before the Tank touchdown. And they flagged for a hold on Schultz. And like you say, it just felt like a bit of a lazy line to run. And we were fortunate to get a holding call, but he was never getting to it, or because he was just completely covered because there was no break on there. But yeah, the one that really irked me was the one-handed one because he catches that.
Yeah, you needed that third down there.
He's running onto the sidelines anyway, and he's got good separation on that one as well. There wasn't a defender that was going to get a hand in there. He was, you get 2 hands to it. It for somebody of his level, and we saw what he can do last season. It should be a catch that he should take.
That's happened a few times. It has happened 2 weeks in a row where he thought if you just extended body control, you get that.
I mean, I tweeted yesterday during might have been the first half or early second half that, and I definitely think you said it the other week that feels like we're missing Brevin Jordan a little bit because of the type of athletic thing that he'd do is that type of thing. He had that one where he took it nearly the distance of the field last year, and they're the ones he's good at where he gets it on the sideline and can break up the touchline. So. It's a shame that we haven't got him, but Schultz needs to pick it up a bit.
Yeah, I think he's just doing just enough of good and bad to not see snap count drop. I think because there's a couple of times where he seals blocks in games, and helps the run game, and then there's other times he just doesn't. He just looks like he's a second or 2 late off the snap, and somebody's beat him to the angle to the ball carrier or the next block or whatever it might be. So yeah, it's frustrating because I think he's a better player than what he's shown so far, Double Shots. But I think that was one of the standouts of there's a couple. There was that and one other big question. We'll come back to the other side of the ball from it. But I think overall good performance. CJ again, probably it was his lowest yardage, but when you run the ball, it shows you second least attempts, I believe, so far in the season as well in passing games. So circumstance, a little bit of benefit in the run game, which is good because ultimately, if CJ throws it 25 times or less in a game, that means you've run the ball well, and I think that's a formula that we can all stick to. And hopefully, we can continue to run the ball, and it'll be a big test against Green Bay this week. But before we get to that, we'll flip on to the other side of the ball, Paul, and I wanted to run this by you because I heard D'Amico talking about last week, and there was a lot of criticism, or certainly of people of Will Anderson and Daniel Hunter, who came up big this week, not being flashy in the stats column. And I do understand that. I do get the point that you've paid these guys, you've invested big draft capital in both of them, so they should be showing up every week without fail, or influencing the game to a point where they stand out. Standout investment should result in standout production. But the quote that D'Amico said, and I'll drop it in, was that he was happy with the performance because the overall defense was better. Now, if you look at, that was the most points New England have scored all season, 21, 3 touchdowns. Okay, it's Drake May's first start, and I think he's probably got a good future if they can get some better protection and some better weapons around him. But actually, I would have said, despite us winning the game by a greater margin, last week's defensive performance was much better as a unit. And I suppose it's kind of, what would you trade off, or what do you think is a more feasible outcome? Because really, ultimately, it's a team sport, it's a team unit game on that side of the ball. And ultimately, if you hold somebody like Josh Allen to absolutely nothing, whereas you give up 3 touchdowns to Green Bay in a first-time rookie starter, even though you filled the stat column with 4 turnovers and 4 sacks, Will Anderson, career day 3 sacks, and a pass defended that led to one of the interceptions. That looks great, but actually the overall product of the defense was better the previous week when we were not flashy. And I think it's just that balance of, you don't need to be flashy on that side of the ball. And that'll appease a lot of people, and I think it'll great, and that'll help his contract value and all this kind of stuff. But actually, I would argue that he probably had a better game last week by being more disciplined, just because I think we're all conditioned, and this podcast is kind of an homage to JJ, that he played undisciplined football a lot of the time, and that kind of, people will always link that to big production meet big player, and obviously all good players have got to have better or elite production to be classed as that. But there's times where you just need to do your job and not step out of lane, because we had for years what was allowed to be undisciplined and freelance and not play the most optimal spot for the team on the front 4 or the 5 down linemen at times. And so just because these guys are not filling the stat column, I don't think it's simple to say they're not playing well. And I thought the last 2 weeks was probably a good illustration of that and those points. And actually, is D'Amico probably happier with last week's overall unit performance and Matt Burke than this week? Probably, even though the stats and the view and everything would contradict that.
Yeah, like you say, people like seeing sacks, people like seeing interceptions, don't they? But when you can limit someone like Josh Allen to 9 receptions of 30 odd attempts, it's a good performance, because he's one of the elite quarterbacks in this league, isn't he? It was really good to see them and actually see the guys getting home and getting hands on quarterbacks, and the tackle for loss is always good to see. I think there's some stuff on the back end. We're missing 2 starters on the back end, which obviously helps stop some of them plays that Drake May makes. But I think, to be fair, I think you said it. I think if they get some weapons around him, I think they've got a good quarterback there. I think he looked quite impressive. Drake May, even when he got under a little bit of pressure, sometimes he moves quite well and did well. But yeah, I think it's more. Yesterday was probably more on the back end of the defense as opposed to up front, while we were shipping some bits.
Yeah. So Lassiter was out. It was actually the offensive pass interference last week from Matt Collins, where he pushed him, that he hit his shoulder towards the end, and that was when. So they think he'll be out multiple weeks. So actually, they may have tried and just didn't get the ball out, but they didn't really go after D'Angelo Ross that much yesterday, and he played the majority of snaps at the opposite corner spot. Ironically, it was Derrick Henry that kind of got caught, and he's kind of got caught a few times this year so far. That's the first time he's been caught out, I suppose. Other ones quarterbacks have missed, and that was bound to happen at some point. So we were due one of those, and that'll happen as a corner. It happens, like every tackle is going to get beat at some point, and and that's just the way it goes. But it's the safety position, Paul. I think that if they had their time again in the off season, that would have been an investment that might have been wise to bring in another quality free agent, because for all the and don't get me wrong, Eric Murray got 2 penalty flags on him for that score that set it up that were complete bullshit calls. Particularly the second one was awful. The first one, okay, you can debate it. There's a pass interference, and then there was a face mask one that was just that was back then. That was that was not understandable, shall we say? But overall, I think Jalen Petrie is a weird player, I think, is the way I could describe it, because you drafted him as a kind of nickel corner. At times, he goes down and he made some great TFLs, but then there was also one time where he just failed to push the guy out of bounds while the guy's standing inches away from the paint, and he misses him, and he continues the drive. I think that was on their first scoring drive or their second scoring drive. I can't remember. I think it was the second scoring drive they had. So he continues to be up and down, and okay, he's maybe learning this new position that he's played a lot in college, but Eric Murray's going to get caught more often than not. And he got caught for their third score against Douglas, and it's a position that even when Jimmy Ward's playing, I don't feel that comfortable that we're set. And look, Kalen Bullock got an interception, recovered a fumble that Aziz punched out. That was great. But it's I think it's the liability. I think corner is intermittent because we've got some elite talent and some development in there, but I struggle to see how the safety nickel position is going to be at any point be a strength. And I think at some point, Paul, it's fair to say it loses a game or two, because it's a clear weakness if you're watching that as an offensive coordinator getting ready to players.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably the one position if you head towards the trade deadline that you're probably looking at thinking, is there something else out there that could help us in this position? And what would we have to give up to get that help? I think pretty much everywhere else, we're pretty set. We've done pretty well, pretty balanced team. So that's the one position where it should be, to me, it should be a real consideration. And Eric, we say that, but Eric Murray made a really good interception behind somebody's back on a ball that he couldn't see.
It was a hell of a catch. Yeah. I saw the Hassan Reddick's hired Drew Rosenhaus as an agent, and I wonder if you could come to some sort of agreement with them that, look, you're not going to play this year, Hassan. Do you want to just, I think it's week 10 or 11, I saw Texas captured out to Troy, talk about he has to return and play before a certain week, before his contract will toll, and it becomes a void year. Effectively, has to redo the year on the current contract, is my understanding of that. I wonder if there's a good enough relationship with Drew Rosenhaus there that you could say, look, we're not going to do a deal this year. We're helping you out in the same way that we're helping you. Come play for us, shows your worth, put yourself in the shop window. We've got a chance to make a playoff run here. You're going to be our third pass rusher in the rotation, because Derek Barnett's not really done that much this year, and he's not looked as good as he did towards the end of the stretch last year. So in some way to relieve it, it's almost like a bit of a change up fastball for the Russian. Could that be an option? And look, it would be at no cost, because the Jets have sunk the cost. They're not going to get back, in the same way that I think that the Raiders want a second for Adams that they're not going to get. So why don't we push the envelope and say, look, we'll give you a sixth. Potentially turns to a fifth if he plays X amount of snaps between now and the end of the season. And if you can get the agent on side with that, then maybe look, the guy's character might be off. But he sort of revitalized his career in Arizona, went to the Eagles, played well again, and I think he was at Carolina, I believe, as well. So he's been about, right? So it's a rental. It's probably not a guy you'd commit to based on the mess that they're in. But I don't know. It's just something like that. I thought today, Paul, that could maybe help us and just give us a bit more of an edge, because I always think you need 3 elite pass rushers in the same way that you probably need a few elite corners, I think, as well.
Yeah, no, interesting thought for sure. But
And the other thought I had on Sunday was that I would love to see this defense. And look, I like Aziz and I like Toto. I think they've been good. But if we could draft an elite linebacker in the same way that Raquan Smith was for the Ravens that we saw last year in the playoffs, I think you'd take this defense to another level, because I think Aziz is good, and I think he'd be a great sort of almost like secondary backer in an elite unit like he was he was a tertiary in the 49ers. But I couldn't help but think of watching on Sunday when I think because of our safety issues, that we could just get an elite coverage linebacker that can also sort of spring that downhill. Like they're rare, I get it. But he's the kind of player you might find at the back end of the first round. But I think if we could add that at some point, I think that would give us a bit of a jump, and it might help you cover up some of your safety issues as well.
Yeah, and it's the one position that linebacker position is the one position we're really going to have to look at this week and find solutions, isn't it? I think if we because Aziz went down with a knee issue, he come back in for a little bit, and Henry Toto ended up going out at the end with a concussion, didn't he? Or he's gone into concussion protocol now. So
yeah.
You need to ask the question of where Christian Harris is, because we could probably do with
ready.
him.
I think he's miles off it. I think he came back for a practice, lasted 20 minutes and been out. So he's not, I mean, it would be a miracle if he was healthy enough. I just don't think he'd be anywhere near that. So, yeah, I think that's if Toto's in the concussion protocol, I think we're really struggling this week, because Chad Hansen and Neville Hewitt out there against this Green Bay run game. I can tell you who's going to win that one. So, or that section of the battle is a bit of a foregone conclusion. So, yeah, that's something to watch out for this week on that injury report, big time.
Yeah. Now, there's a couple on there, wasn't there, that we need to just keep an eye out for. But
yeah, and Tunsil as well. Let's see with that, because I assume it was the same ankle. So you've got an issue there where you may or may not. You've got a ready-made replacement because they drafted one smartly, I think, and that was a good bit of succession planning. But there's that's one again against looking the Green Bay talent up front. Is certainly a huge jump of what you play. They've not necessarily rushed like that, I don't think, or achieved what I think many thought would be that unit. But I think those guys, Kenny Clark and Rashawn Gary and a few others, going against Eric Fisher, it's going to be if he's out there at left tackle, it's going to be a bit of a rude awakening for him. And I think he probably weakens us in the run game a little bit to this point as well. But look, I think you were getting close to the Titus Howard not being, potentially being questioned because he hadn't played that well. He missed a game. We've still yet to find successive games where this offensive line, and that may just be wishful thinking, Paul, but this offensive line to play and start and end successive games, it's not happened yet, and probably won't happen now. But it's again a big one to watch, I think, because it's going to be a far sterner test this Sunday.
Yeah, I think what I was reading earlier is that they didn't seem overly concerned about Tunsil. I think it was one of them that when Fisher come in, did okay. And by the time they were reasonably satisfied with Tunsil, it was maybe the point where we were bringing in the replacements anyway. So they just kept him out just to not aggravate anything, I hope. Or they hoped in the article I read anyway. So fingers crossed that's the case. But yeah, I think he's done. Yeah, the rookie's done quite well, hasn't he? He deputised quite well the week before for Titus at right tackle. And I think you can always tell with tackles when they're playing well, when you don't hear their name. You don't hear the name mentioned for anything. And they're just having a steady game. And he did that the week before, really. And then, he's dropped in at different points for Tunsil as well. So looks a tidy player that we picked up there. So fingers crossed. But yeah, the injuries yesterday were a bit of a concern.
Well, that's it.
We need to see that report.
Yeah, every win comes at a cost at some point. It just depends what that cost is, and it's it looks like that maybe one that's a limiting factor. I don't know. But one thing we do have this week, Paul, is the Denico Autry return now. He's kind of like a guy that everybody's aware of. Seen him at Tennessee. been in Indianapolis as well, and he's always been a difficult player to play against. He's got inside-outside versatility on that front. He might give you a chance to get different pass rusher combinations on the field that we've not had. He's all ready to go, so I think they expect him to be brought back onto the roster this week at the expense of somebody. Also, Rashad Weaver wearing number 99. Don't know how I feel about that. I didn't actually notice that until I saw it on the roster when I was checking. It was actually because I was checking who's 92. It's Dylan Horton. That's what I was checking. Then I saw at the top 99. And okay, but yeah, I think Danico Autry is definitely going to add an element to this pass rush that we've not had, and I think it probably strengthens that at a time this week, particularly if Lassiter's out, particularly if Jimmy Ward's out. It might alleviate some of that risk on the back end if he can come and start the season how we know we can rush, particularly being that sort of flexible DNDT hybrid.
Yeah, I mean, there's only so many people you can cover, isn't there? I mean, you've got three really good guys up front, including like Hunter, Will Anderson, and Autry. Then, you're limited the amount of people you can really put onto each one of them. So you'd like to think that they start getting more one-on-one battles, and then they start winning them battles, and that should be a good sign for us. So hopefully, he comes back onto the roster, and then this defense or the defensive front can take another step forward this week, which would be good. And then, I think if we limit Jordan Love's time with the ball in his hand or try and make him get the ball out quicker, then it's probably going to be a benefit for us. Or if we can slow him down, again, either way.
Yeah, no, I think it's a needed reinforcement on a sort of side of the ball. You can never have enough. But yeah, I think depending on injuries and whatnot, I think there may be a trade in there at the deadline. I don't know about a major one, but it's slightly later this year with a rule change, but we shall see. But no, I think we've ripped through that in decent speed, Paul. Not to make you too jealous, but I'm flying out there Thursday, just in case you'd forgotten. And I'm looking forward to it. I've not been to a game since I went to the New Year game last year. That was the last one I went to in Houston, and we're looking forward to meeting up with a few people. I had a couple of messages from different people that saw we're going. Looking forward to that. If you are going, drop me a message. It'd be good to see a few old and familiar faces and some new ones as well. I'm looking forward to see what the oldest stadium in a tiny town's like, I think, but it's definitely got one of the original franchise lineage and history. So yeah, looking forward to seeing it in the flesh, because I always think you always view it slightly differently when you see it up close rather than on the screen. It always has a different feel to it, and it kind of changes and validates some opinions you had and new ones that you gained as a result of it. So looking forward to that. Now, depending on how many beers you have, it depends how much you take in, but now looking forward to seeing Green Bay and seeing everything we've got. But yeah, no, I think what's your outlook on this this Sunday, Paul? Because it's certainly a team that when they got Jordan Love back looked serious, and they bullied Arizona yesterday, particularly up front.
No, they're a good side, aren't they? I think they were a good side at the end of last year, and I think they definitely give you opportunities. I don't think Jordan Love will throw it into some tight gaps at some point and give you some opportunities for takeaways. But he's got a good arm on him. And then I think on the defensive side of the ball, you mentioned some of that defensive front they've got earlier, and they've got a really good defense. So we're going to have to be on it. The people that have to step in for injuries are going to have to be up to speed as quick as they can and on it as well. And we go from there. Is the only hope. But But no, it'd be good. It'd be for where we are now. It'd be a really good test of where we are, especially with the injuries, and then we can see what this team is made of. Really,
it's a timely test, and I think if you look at I think off memory, it was 20-something to 0 when they played Minnesota at home. So, and then they kind of brought some, dead time scores back and made that one look a lot closer. But I think from the wider opinion, I've not watched enough of them to have a clear one of my own yet. but their corners are there to be gotten at. I don't think the linebackers are playing as well as they could. So the intermittent passing game, if you can get the tight ends involved and run it well up front, will be the key on that side. And then I just think we just can't let them run it with Josh Jacobs. They've obviously invested in him. And then, ultimately, Love's not on the same level as CJ. But if you give him a run game to balance and blend into, then that's quite a formidable player, and you saw that in his contract. So echoed that short game performance. And I think we continue to blitz a lot more than we probably want to. But I think that's more of a function of less one-on-one matchup wins. But Green Bay's O-line is one of those sort of evergreen areas of a team that they continue to just draft, third, fifth round picks and just kind of build it out and be relatively consistent. It's never an issue in the same way that I think we felt the pain at times. So that always seems to be a consistency with them. Looking forward to it, Paul. I think you're right. It's going to be a real test of who we are at this stage of the season. Can we have that mixing factor and give us a run game? Because if we can, I fancy us against anybody, but that's always where it starts. And obviously we've got to not give the big explosive plays up. But I'm excited to go there and see it with my own eyes and get a bit of the atmosphere and get a real feel for like where we are as a team, and again is the identity forging a little bit, albeit without Nico. You still got that to come back. But it's going to be a test. I think it's a good test of where you are. If you beat a team that you should beat anyway, you can take limited amounts from that. Because if you can just win this one on Sunday, and I know it's an NFC game, so if you're going to give up any of the NFC games are the ones, so the Dallas and the Detroit games, if you have to cough them up, then fine. I think of those three, you probably want to win at least one, if not two. But then going back next Sunday, if you can then go and beat Indianapolis, who are closest rivals, and I don't think it's going to be close based on Jacksonville's collapse in London against the Bears and Tennessee, being plucky with some kind of older name brands on the roster. But if you can get a 2-game lead against Indy next week, and you win this one on Sunday, if we could, I know it's a lot to ask and it's unlikely, but if you could, I'd put you in a fucking hell of a position going into that last few games.
Yeah, I mean, winning that next Indy game will be big. I mean,
it's more important than this Sunday, obviously. But if you can double up,
and then we've got recent experience against Joe Flacco, and they're doing the near annual thing there where Joe Flacco comes in, throws some big touchdowns, gets loads of yards, and everyone's talking like he should be the starter for another team, and we have to do what we did to him last year when he was at the Browns, and really put him under pressure because he's not going to move as well. But yeah, you mentioned the other NFC teams. I think the one that we really should be a big circle round to make a really big point, depending on their injury situation, is the Dallas game, and just really put it to them. Because I watched some of their game last night and it wasn't pretty. So
I think that it's a little bit of a crossroads moment. It's not vital. If we cough it up, it's okay. But you'd rather not. And I think as well within this team's ability, if we play discipline, because I think that was the big thing on Sunday. There was no bullshit penalties for the most part. There's a couple on defense, but I don't mind you getting the odd one on defense because it's a cost of doing business. But the offense, pre-snap penalties and kind of stuff like that, holding a little bit I can take. But we played a pretty clean game, so if that continues, that's the kind of stuff you need on the road. It's an open air environment. It's not the easiest to always throw the ball, even though it's a sort of low down ball. I'm told it's freezing. It's old metal bleachers. Even if it's warm, take a bit of cardboard to sit on was the one bit of advice I've been given. So. But
it has the feeling like the San Siro in Milan where AC winter break. And I went there the other year and we ended up standing on the plastic seats because the concrete was so cold that my toes were going numb. So you had to stand on the plastic. So it's definitely take something and some thick socks.
Well, so the forecast right now is 22 degrees Celsius. That is. So. I think that's I'll take that. What's that Fahrenheit? Sort of 70 Fahrenheit. So, You know, as good as you could have got, it could have been a hell of a lot worse. I've been watching that anticipatory of what closed the park. But yeah, no, I think it will be. I'm looking forward to it, and we'll look forward to talking about it with you Tuesday if we can make it. I'll need to travel day back. Hopefully Gareth can join us as well, and we'll hopefully be talking about a win. And if we could get to 6-1, that feels a hell of a lot nicer. But it's just done on the next one done. But any last thoughts before we get out here, Paul?
No, I just think it's a case of keeping it going. You know, not resting on the fact that 5-1's a great start, and you know, I think just keeping that momentum going. I don't think D'Amico's the type of person that would let them rest on their laurels a little bit. I think he will be pushing them as much as he can to make it 6-1 and continue the momentum. Because I think towards Christmas, it's often not how well you're playing, it's the momentum you're building, and that gets you through. I think a lot of the time. So I think building that momentum now is going to be a great help for later in the year for us. Just need to keep it going.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the fact that we're winning now and the way we're winning now gives me some solace. I think that you can, if you play better, you're going to win more convincingly rather than just winning games that you kind of the opponent weren't really hanging with you. So big test Sunday. Two young quarterbacks with both the same agent, by the way, as the dearly departed who continues to stink it up. And a shout out to Dallas for a 47 points conceded at home as well. And I think that fixture looks a lot more winnable now than it did at the start of the year. So stuff changes really quickly in this league. But as you said, you cannot be complacent. We cannot have that lull in the second quarter that D'Amico described it as this week. But Mixon's back. Let's keep running this ball, and we've got a right chance. And it's fucking exciting, Paul. That's the thing. Every game means something now, and it's just a world away where we've been, and it just feels fucking great, and it's just enjoyable to watch. Even though it's tense, even though you want them to beat them other teams by more, it all means something, and that's just a great position to be in. Not one that I've had a huge amount in my sporting endeavours. Unlike yourself, you've had a bit more experience of the elite than I have. But you might be on a winner this year as well with your team as well. So we'll maybe pick up that one again next week or as the season goes. But we'll leave that one for now. But thank you everybody for listening to the Turn Up for What podcast. Thank you for Paul for his time again. And here is to go in 6-1 up in Wisconsin this Sunday. But thanks again for listening. I'll speak to you again next week.